Hello friends, welcome back to corporate level strategies, corporate level strategic decision making, wherein strategic management is looked upon with the perspective of corporate level strategy, and we are talking about diversification. We are trying to understand operational relatedness and corporate relatedness largely in terms of transfer of acumen, transfer of knowledge, and we largely touched upon all the quadrants except for one, which is a simultaneous element of, as far as simultaneous operational relatedness and corporate relatedness basically. But the point here is that, are we familiar with the current value creating diversification strategies employed by organizations? Have we started thinking in those kind of terms wherein operational relatedness and corporate relatedness is simultaneously evident? So, are we familiar with the current value creating diversification in terms of the usage, the perspective, how it has evolved in due course of time? Have we looked upon for example, the case of automotive companies like Suzuki, which has been in two-wheeler space as well as four-wheeler space, and then Mahindras, who have been into agri products or let's say farm equipment, and then automotives, and simultaneously they grew their automotive segment, and then they are going for aeroplane manufacturing as well, in terms of developing their acumen towards as far as flying equipment production or aeroplane production in simpler terms. And then in a sophisticated manner they are trying to put up several kinds of linkages between their businesses through software development and so on, and then so many kinds of things are going on as far as the structure goes basically. And Amul is a big example in terms of operational relatedness as well as corporate relatedness, and that has been exemplified traditionally by Amul, and it is one of those organizations, as I was telling you, that it belongs to different kinds of eras, wherein there was a core supplier based kind of a relatedness, then operational relatedness, coupling up the supplier based relatedness, and then going towards corporate relatedness in due course of time. And there are several other aspects which one has to look into, but just elaborating upon this segment and then moving upon to as far as market power. So let's see simultaneous operational relatedness and corporate relatedness. What are the nitty-gritties? Some firms simultaneously seek operational and corporate relatedness to create economies of scope, and here we are talking of economies of scope at large. The ability to simultaneously create economies of scope by sharing activities and transferring core competencies is difficult for competitors to understand and learn how to imitate. We have been talking in terms of these kind of diversifications with reference to value creation throughout the value chain. And you see here, as I told you last time also, we are talking about strategically managing the value chains. When I started talking about this process, I was referring to it with reference to strategically managing things, but here strategically managing value chains and developing value webs. So value creation throughout value chains, and difficult for competitors to understand and learn how to imitate. Walt Disney uses a related diversification strategy to simultaneously create economies of scope through operational and corporate relatedness. Within the firm's studio entertainment business, for example, Disney can gain economies of scope by sharing activities among its different movie distribution companies, even movie production as such also. In today's environment, wherein movies are actually produced through virtual technology or software which creates virtual scenarios. So several kinds of movies can be produced in a similar kind of a facility. See, if you will look into the structure of studios which has evolved in due course of time, you would realize that in one large studio or large premises, there are several kinds of productions of different kinds of movies going on, and similar kinds of resources are being shared. It is like many times I recall an example wherein I was talking to owner of a catering company, and he was telling me one fine evening, we were sitting together, and he was telling me that, you see, today 4 or 5 parties are going on wherein my catering company is supporting those parties. One marriage party is going on, one birthday party is going on, one some other celebration is going on, and so on. And there are several kinds of different orders we are serving. but there are many common orders also which we are serving in terms of dishes, in terms of menu, many times in terms of drinks, for example, welcome drinks and those kind of things. And if the distance is not too much, basically, then we keep on managing the situation between these two kinds of parties with the help of making a hub from where we are supplying to both the parties and so on. And many times when there is a shortage in terms of somewhere, we can fulfill that shortage from the other location as such also. And if the distance is too long, then also we have some kind of a synergy between the two locations, and somehow we are creating a justified linkage between different kinds of parties which we are supporting. It is just an example, it is an analogous kind of a thing wherein similar kind of a studio is being utilized for different kinds of productions, and similar kind of a facility can be utilized for different kinds of movies and so on. Or many a times, if one actor is acting in two different movies simultaneously in the same studio, same unit is or let us say one large unit divided into two parts is actually shooting with that actor, and this actor is having two scripts in his hands at one part of time, and he can appear and if for example this actor is a police inspector, or it's just a thought, he's a police inspector in both the movies, for example, wearing the same uniform, he's having a different script here and different script there, and shoots there, and I don't know how feasible it is, but many times it happens basically. So you see, the point here is that this is how you create synergy, and you save so many costs, and so many advantages are being taken, and companies do that. Broad and deep knowledge about its customers is a capability on which Disney relies to develop corporate level core competencies in terms of advertising and marketing. With these competencies, Disney is able to create economies of scope through corporate relatedness as it cross sells products that are highlighted in its movies through the distribution channels that are part of its parks and resorts and consumer products businesses. Now let us go towards, you see, we are talking about reasons for diversification. So up till now we have tried to understand economies of scope as one of the reasons, major reasons for diversification, and within that we have talked about sharing activities and transferring core competencies. Now we are moving towards market power, that is again related diversification, wherein blocking competitors through multi-point competition and vertical integration are the two key elements. Let us see what we find out. So market power exists when a firm is able to sell its products above the existing competitive level, or to reduce the cost of its primary and support activities below the competitive level, or both. When a firm is able to sell its product above the existing competitive level, or to reduce the cost of primary and support activities below the competitive level at large. Firms can create market power through multi-point competition and vertical integration as such also. As I said, you are taking control of your value chain. You are becoming your own supplier also and your buyer also. For example, you are into yarn manufacturing, and then you finish it as producing different kinds of clothes, and then you enter into finishing those clothes and enter into ready-made garments business basically, and then you become your own retailer as such also. Do you recall that many organizations have been doing this? Raymond's, they have been doing this, and many other organizations, they do it very effectively. So you see, they can create market power through multi-point competition as such. Now multi-point competition exists when two or more diversified firms simultaneously compete in the same product areas or geographic markets as such. Examples: the actions taken by United Parcel Service (UPS) and FedEx in two markets, overnight delivery and ground shipping, illustrate multi-point competition. UPS has moved into overnight delivery, FedEx stronghold. FedEx has been buying trucking and ground shipping assets to move into ground shipping, UPS stronghold. Moreover, geographic competition for markets increase as DHL, the strongest shipping company in Europe, tries to move into US market. All three competitors, UPS, FedEx and DHL, are trying to move into large foreign markets to either gain a stake in market or to expand their existing share of a market basically. And that is precisely how someone is moving from this side to that side, and some other is moving from that side to this side, and somehow this is how it is going on. It is a matter of increasing market power, either by extending our foothold basically, either by extending ourselves into others' markets, and precisely here we are talking about things with a philosophical backdrop of red oceans, strong competitive perspective, which largely most of the authors have talked about. What could have UPS done in terms of blue ocean perspective? That definitely must be understood, that definitely must be seen. They could have done something differently. For example, Airbnb and Booking.com, are they doing something different basically? For example, Netflix and Amazon Prime, what difference are they creating in terms of, as far as this red ocean and blue ocean sphere goes? If you will realize, Netflix is more into developing their own software, that is Netflix produced serials and movies, which Prime is also doing, but then Prime is now also becoming an aggregator. For example, they are having other producers involved and included in their segment, wherein you have to rent them separately through Prime. So they are becoming a platform wherein you can get associated with other kinds of OTT platforms through the sphere of Prime. Disney, they have also tried for that, they are also trying to do that, and so on. And you may look into some portion with a blue ocean perspective and some portion with the red ocean perspective as such also. So here a little addition to our thought process with the backdrop of philosophies which we have been pursuing, that red oceans and blue oceans can coexist in one example also. In some of their activities, they are trying to be in the blue ocean, some of as far as their revenue generating streams go, some of their businesses go, some of their products go, and on the other side they may be into red ocean as far as some other businesses or some other products go. So that is what the perspective is, but ultimately it is a matter of enhancing your foothold, generating further value, and that can also be done through vertical integration that we have just seen. So this example justifies that, signifies that. So and further adding to the examples, in India major telecom companies like Reliance Jio, Bharti Airtel, Vodafone Idea and BSNL compete across the country. For instance, Reliance Jio might dominate in urban areas with its affordable data plans, while Bharti Airtel focuses on providing high quality services in both urban and rural regions as such. And you see, there was a time when the regions were completely divided between the telecom operators, but now there is a huge overlap, although there are some demarcations associated with as far as their licenses go, but then definitely there are elements which put them into a fierce competition, and someone is trying to differentiate with the perspective of the kind of data you may use through those organizations, and some is trying to differentiate through connectivity, call based kind of a thing more or less, and so on. And many a times it's all the same. At one part of time when you start comparing the advertisements, you would realize that they are trying to fiercely compete in almost all the spheres and so on. So again, it's a matter of market power. And this example, telecom communication, is an example wherein we look at these kind of things in progression. Earlier it was as far as developing scope goes, and then it is related to market power as such. Now the lesson is that many a times when technology is evolving, when the industry is evolving, and we talked about that when we were talking about industry life cycle long back, that when it is evolving, then might be there is a stage wherein wherein scope development is the key, economies of scope, and when it has evolved, it has reached to a particular kind of a stage wherein everything has been standardized, then just recall we talked about that, then there might be a question of market power, and that is the point wherein blue ocean comes in. If you are focusing upon blue ocean, then definitely you might bypass the competition or put the competition aside as such. Vertical integration exists when a company produces its own inputs, backward integration, or own its own source of output distribution. We talked about that. An example of vertical integration in India is Tata Group, particularly in Tata Steel industry. Tata Steel, a subsidiary of Tata Group, is one of the leading steel producers in India. Vertical integration occurs when a company controls different stages of production process within an industry and so on. In case of Tata Steel, raw materials, Tata Steel has backward integration by owning and operating iron ore mines and coal mines, which they did, and which they actually, this is how they initiated their business. So they started their business from having this control of their supply chain or value chain at large when they started mining. They were thoughtful about this, that is true, but then it was required by them as well. Otherwise, whom would they rely upon in terms of mining and finding iron ore? So they relied upon their own acumen to do that first of all, because when Jamshedji thought of producing steel in India, he was advised that they should be mining for iron ore and they should find the raw material source first. That is how steel would be manufactured at the end of the day. This ensures a steady and cost effective supply of raw materials for steel production. Tata Steel operates several steel manufacturing plants across India, wherein raw materials from its mines are processed into various steel products. Tata Steel also has forward integration by distributing and selling its steel products directly to customers through its network of dealers, distributors and retail outlets and so on. Many companies, they have progressed into actually going for finished steel products also, wherein many companies are now producing, let us say, window frames and several other kinds of products. Just for an example, APL Steel, they are trying to do that, but I am not sure that if they are actually their own suppliers in terms of mining or no. Now comes in financial economies, unrelated diversification, efficient internal allocation and business restructuring. That is also one of the reasons for diversification, and that is also value creating diversification. Let us see what it is all about. So, financial economies are cost savings realized through improved allocations of financial resources. Improved allocations of financial resources based on investments inside or outside the firm. An unrelated diversification strategy can create value through two types of financial economies. Efficient internal capital allocations can lead to financial economies. Efficient internal capital allocations reduce risk among firms' businesses, for example, by leading to the development of a portfolio of businesses with different risk profiles. We have been talking about, especially in terms of red ocean, we have been talking about strategic choices with a perspective of above average rate of returns. And we talked about above average rate of returns earlier also, wherein how which kind of businesses you would choose to go for, wherein you can earn more than the other choices. That the simple logic is that reducing the risk, maximizing the gains and choosing amongst businesses, amongst different kinds of activities. That is where financial allocation comes in, efficient internal capital allocations, that comes in. The second type of financial economy concerns the restructuring of acquired assets. Here, the diversified firm buys another company, restructures that company's assets in the ways that allow it to operate more profitably and then sells the company for a profit in the external market, may or may not sell that as such. Many organizations, they bought advertising companies in past basically to integrate their advertising activities by acquiring these companies, wherein because you see many large conglomerates, they require large level of advertisement support and media support, and hiring people from outside, agencies from outside is a costly affair. Lots of money has to be allocated for that. So, why not to have your own in-house agency? Many organizations, they have their own in-house agencies. Now, these can be full service agencies, and I am just using this as an example and just to make a point here. So, why not to use these agencies for as full agencies, wherein you develop the advertisements, you develop the media releases, you have all the acumen and you are working as a fully functional advertising agency supporting the organizations within the group. Many times, if you do not want to do that and your existing creative agency is doing well, then you have a portion of that agency acquired, or you develop a portion of that business within in-house, for example, media purchasing agency, wherein you allocate funds to this financial resources to this arm, and they purchase media spaces and time for you basically. That will save lots of money, because if you will ask others to do that, they would have large cut in that. That means they have their own profit margins there, and that can be saved. And once you are negotiating for yourself in terms of as far as media space and media allocations go, then definitely the negotiations might be better as would have been thought by several kinds of conglomerates in due course of time. So, again you see this is sort of an example wherein those kind of things are done. And then when we say that we have restructuring of acquired assets basically somehow just to support one operational kind of a thing basically, or let us say, and after that once we realize that we are done with that, we just go for and sell that kind of a business. And many times these kind of things happen in terms of, especially in large conglomerates. One fine morning you are discussing in a boardroom meeting, and somehow you require that some kinds of acumen is so scattered that you are unable to control the flow of production in your own plants and so on. So, you acquire that. For example, someone is designing automotives for you, and you feel that you are highly dependent upon those kind of organizations, and you are unable to manage the flow, the timing and everything. You acquire those kind of people. You try to do that, and after a while you realize that it has become a costly affair, because your business support requires a particular kind of a cost element. Now, this maintaining this business is exceeding that cost element. So, either you go for serving the clients outside your organization, which many advertising agencies within the organizations they did. They had independent client servicing outside their group also, but many a times if you feel that it is too large a business now and that is not one of your core competencies, you sell it off to someone and it goes off. So, there are several kinds of examples, there are several kinds of stories which you would find in that kind of a sphere. Now, value neutral diversification. As I said, there can be several kinds of reasons when you have to diversify, you think of diversifying, and they may not be increasing the value at all, neither increasing nor decreasing. But I want to add here that at this juncture, at this moment, they are not doing that. In due course of time, they might do that, and they should be doing that. I emphasized upon this point in my last discussion that they should actually be doing this, doing that. For example, I talked about low performance, and I would be elaborating about this in a short while. Let us see. The objectives firms seek when using related diversification and unrelated diversification strategies all have the potential to help the firm create value by using a corporate level strategy. However, these strategies are sometimes used with value neutral rather than value creating objectives in mind. Different incentives to diversify sometimes surface, and the quality of the firm's resources may permit only diversification that is value neutral rather than value creating. It is circumstantial, but remember, whenever we are doing this, it should end into value creation later on. Incentives to diversify come from both the external environment and a firm's internal environment. External environmental pressures are there, tax regime is changing, tax structure is changing, and you have to diversify to save some tax and so on. Or you have to move out your operations outside this region because tax is becoming higher, and you are going to some other region wherein tax is low, labor availability is lesser, labor prices are high, workforce remuneration is high in particular parts of the world, and then you move outside to save that kind of a cost. If somehow you are unable to survive and it is a tough competition which you are facing in terms of price war and so on. External incentives include antitrust regulations and tax laws. Internal incentives include low performance, uncertain future cash flows, and the pursuit of synergy and reduction of risk for the firm. So, the point is that somehow that might not increase the value at all at this moment. In fact, you have to neutralize at this moment, because actually whatever is happening around, it is reducing, it is pulling you down somehow. So, you have to maintain that level of neutrality. So, value neutral kind of a thing when you talk of diversification. But the point is, for example, some companies move to China, a very common example, and we all know about that. Many companies move to China in due course of time, and then they move their production facilities over there to save upon workforce cost, to have large level of trained skilled workforce, manpower to support your businesses and to increase your production. But what we realized at the end of the day was that although it was value neutral diversification at that particular kind of a moment, but it contributed into value creating diversification, it actually became value creating diversification later on. So, what I am trying to put up here is that ultimately this value neutral diversification must graduate to value creating diversification. Now, the last part in terms of reasons for diversification, value reducing diversification. Again, authors are intelligent enough to observe, this form of diversification or this reason for diversification. I would not say form, reason for diversification, wherein value reducing diversification means diversifying managerial employment risk, increasing managerial compensation. So, this may be the reason, but again I would say that at this moment, when companies do, at a particular moment when companies try to do this, this may be looked upon as value reducing diversification, but ultimately it is meant to create value in due course of time, and it should do that. Let us see. So, managerial motives to diversify can exist independently of value neutral reasons, that is incentives and resources, and value creating reasons, example economies of scope. The desire for increased compensation and reduced managerial risk are two motives for top level executives to diversify their firm beyond value creating and value neutral levels. Top level executives may diversify a firm in order to diversify their own employment risk as long as profitability does not suffer excessively. But the board is intelligent, the directors of the company are intelligent, there are people who are watching that, the stockholders are watching that, the stakeholders are monitoring that. So, at the end of the day you have to justify, and once you enter into those kind of diversified portfolios, after a particular kind of a stage you enter into a growth trajectory, and once you are into a growth trajectory and if you do it well, strategically you would be growing and it would be getting converted into a value creating diversification at the end of the day, whatever the reasons, even if it is value reducing at this kind of a moment, but then it should get converted into value creation later on. I will be catching up back with you in terms of putting up a perspective around strengthening a company's competitive position, and then I would be taking you towards mergers, acquisitions and joint ventures in my next segment, at least for 2 sessions, before going for another interesting aspect associated with strategic management or strategically managing value chains and developing value webs. I will be catching up back with you soon. Till then, goodbye.